It's not even.
A wooden snake, ready to strike. Phone's on silent.
Came up. I decided to reboot.
3 minutes. Let's get ready to govern, people.
Yep.
I'm always ready to govern.
Ms. Leslie, have you, I was gonna ask you, have you heard anything on the sidewalks on 110?
Have it.
I just wondered.
Oh, that grant thing?
Yeah,
Yeah.
boy,
Hadn't even crossed my mind. John.
that's gonna be so nice.
There was a lot of tenants that we didn't get a response from.
Yeah,
Reached out to them.
is that right?
And I think they wanted 100% attachment before they could go forward. There's some of those like that. Well, now that we're in contact with that green building that's over there, we kind of finally got in contact with them. But it's just a name on a county record somewhere that
Yeah.
respond.
Yep. Cell phones on silence.
I double checked mine.
I need to double check mine.
I'm not trying to tell y'all what to do.
So I feel like I did when we walked in, but it's good to.
Who made you the mayor pro tem?
Who, me?
He's the minister.
Full of it tonight, aren't you?
I don't want it.
He's the minister of electronic devices. No, the czar of electronic.
The supreme leader.
John's a little sassy, so he needs a name too.
Thank you, Miss Georgia.
You're welcome.
He's the czar of sassafras.
I guess so.
I may have to move right here.
They may have
Prefer
to.
Sultan.
He said I couldn't sing good the other day.
And we're live.
He told you you couldn't sing.
Yeah.
Who did?
And
Very comfortable, just a reminder.
yeah.
We're on and live.
Oh, that's okay.
It was good, clean, wholesome fun.
Yeah.
It's a matter of public record. John said Councilman Lowe couldn't sing.
That's right. You meant it too,
He seems okay with it.
but I still like it.
All right, we just got I think I might have my contacts in the wrong eyes. I just realized that. We have what looks like either 30 or 10 seconds. Okay.
Well, if it's any
It's one of
consolation,
those days.
I've been there, Mayor. I've been there.
Yeah. I was slipped in under the wire.
It's supposed to be 10 minutes prior.
Same
5
subject.
seconds.
Staff updates on inspection. Where is that at?
Right.
Okay, cool. All right. I'll now call to order this meeting of the City of White House Council for today, August the 16th, 2022, which is a Tuesday. It is 6 o'clock. Ms. Hargis, will you please call the roll?
Sir James Wonsley,
Here.
Zach Briscoe,
Here.
Georgia Harris,
Here.
John Chambers,
Here.
Michael Lowe,
Here.
and Heath Rosenstein. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Will you please stand if you're able and join Mr. Pete REESE as he leads us in a word of prayer? Yes, sir.
Good evening. Let's pray. Father God, we thank you for this day. We thank you for the ability that you give us to meet here this evening. We ask that you bless this time. Father, we ask you to open our minds and our hearts to the business at hand. We are grateful to members of the City Council for the leadership they provide and willingness to serve our community. It's good to see people from the public here this evening as well. As Americans, we're afforded many freedoms, many privileges, many opportunities to gather. This particular opportunity we have this evening is for citizenry to gather with their elected leaders. That's what we're going to do here this evening. It's a good thing. We're grateful for that. There are many nations around the world that can do just that, what we're going to do this evening. Father, we thank you for love, your grace, your mercies, all the benefits and blessings that you shower us with each and every day. But Father, we're most humble on the sacrifice that your Son made for Before we begin this evening, we ask that you bless this time in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Mr. Reese. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The Texas flag. Honor
On
the
the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Pretty good for a big crowd. Thank you all. Please be seated. All right, that takes us into item D on the agenda and presentations. And we have a presentation from Frontier. Mr. David Russell, Vice President of External Affairs. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much. Mayor, members of the council, city staff, and ladies and gentlemen, I will apologize in advance for the part of my anatomy you have to look at. But I am here tonight to talk to you about the investment that Frontier is making here in White House by building a high-speed fiber optic network here. I'll talk about the advanced services this network will bring, how we plan to communicate with the public about what we're doing, about our safety precautions, our methods of construction, and our restoration efforts. But first, let me introduce my colleague who's with me tonight, Stephen Higgins. Stephen is the manager of construction for North Texas, and so if there are any issues or problems, I'm going to throw him under the bus pretty quickly. Thank you, Stephen. That way? Thank you. That works. We're building this network by extending fiber optic cables to customers' homes and businesses directly from our local switching center. Then we will use high-intensity lasers to direct communications over the different wavelengths of the light into the home or business. Now, it's not going to replace our copper network. People can remain on copper if they choose to do that. But this new network will provide broadband speeds from 50 megabits per second all the way up to 2 gigabits per second, with the potential to provide even faster services in the future. Now, when I talk about gigabit speeds, you may think, well, who in the world needs that type of broadband speed? Who needs that, you know? Well, I've been fortunate because of my position within the company to have had this fiber optic service at my house for the last 18 years. Now, when I first got it, it was 15 megabits. Now, 18 years ago, 15 megabits was pretty awesome. 18 years ago. But over that period of time, a lot of my devices have engaged in that network, and 15 megabits wouldn't cut it anymore. And I think that's the way a lot of people are experiencing, in that with the technology that we have today, faster and faster speeds are needed as more and more of our devices are enabled to use it. And the nice thing about this is this network is built for today's needs, but it's scalable so it can be accommodate the needs of the future. The fiber optic network using laser technology can handle it. Now, this is a simplified depiction of how our fiber will reach customers. It's 100% fiber optic from our central office to the home, along the public rights of way to our fiber hubs in the city, and then to terminals in your neighborhoods and onto the home or business where it connects to a router, so it can provide voice and data communications. It's almost identical to our copper network that we have in place today. It's just a lot faster. There are two other important points I want to make about this. With some companies, a customer has to share the bandwidth that they subscribe to with their neighbors. It's a shared bandwidth experience, but not with our network. If you sign up for 500 megabits, that's exactly what you get, and you don't share it with anybody. Also, with most companies, you get one speed for download speeds, and normally the 500 megabits, that's what's touted, that's what you get for download. Well, our network is symmetrical. That means you get the same speed down and up. That's especially important for people who have to upload a lot of video data, which is increasingly common with people who are having to work from home and things like that. With the changes we've all seen in our society over the past 2 years, thanks to the pandemic, the need for this type of network makes more sense today than it ever has. How many of us work remotely at least part of the time? And I think that remote learning in some form is here to stay, and streaming services like Netflix and Hulu and Disney and others are the way an increasing number of people are choosing to get their video programming. And those are just a few examples. That's why Frontier has made the decision to invest in our network here and in other parts of Texas to be able to meet that need. Obviously, to build this network, we're going to have to place new cable around town. We'll need the help of the Public Works Department in getting the permits we'll need, and we had a meeting last month with Leslie and some of her staff to talk about that. We'll be placing cable over the next 4 months that will cover almost the entire community, about 4,000 homes. Now, before we build, we'll distribute door hangers to the homes and businesses in the area where we'll be working so that they'll know what's going on, and they look something like this. This is a generic version, but you can see an example of the front and the back of the door hangers. They have information about what we're doing with an email address and a phone number to call if people have questions or issues, and an indication of how long it will be working in their neighborhood. Now, we can't guarantee that you or the city staff won't get calls. You know, that's gonna happen, but we're trying to keep that to a minimum to keep as much of the burden off the city staff as possible. In addition to the door hangers, we're also going to be posting signs at the main entry points to the areas that we're working on, again, to make people aware of what we're doing, and this is what the signs will look like. They're nice and colorful to attract attention and big enough for people to read easily as they drive by. Naturally, we'll take them down and move them to the next location once we're finished building a certain area. Another thing that we do is we have our contractors take pictures, or more commonly video, of the streets that we build along so that we can know what it looked like before construction began, so we'll have a good record of what it needs to look like when we're finished for restoration purposes. Future Infrastructure is our contractor who's going to be doing most of the construction here, and they're tasked with restoring it appropriately for the consumers to look like it did when they started. Now, here's what it looks like when we do directional boring in our buried facilities. The orange tubing you see there on the right is conduit. We pull through the borehole, and then the fiber optic cable goes in through that. We don't do open trenching, and we backfill any holes created by the boring once the work is completed. If we install aerial cable, that's a lot easier because we just have to overlash the fiber onto the existing copper cable using the poles that we already have. The fiber optic cable is much lighter and smaller than copper cable, so it's very easy to overlash, and it doesn't put undue strain on the attachments that are already on the poles. The safety of our customers, our employees, and our vendors is of utmost importance to us, and we'll take the steps necessary to make residents aware of what's happening and ensure that the work is performed safely and to city standards. There could be traffic control on several streets during the build due to the equipment that will be in use, but safety will be our top priority. And you'll note the safety fencing that's in the picture there on the left side, that's around a hole there on the left. That's where we would place a buried cabinet called a handhold, and I'll show you one of those next. That's what that looks like. As I said, we call this a handhold, and it can serve between 4 to 8 customers, so not everyone will have one in the right-of-way at the front of their property. Now, I have one very similar to this in the right-of-way at the front of my property. You notice it right at first, but once the grass, you know, if it rains, starts raining again, once the grass turns green, it just kind of blends in, and you can drive your mower right over it if you've got a riding mower like I do. To connect the fiber to the home or business, we connect a smaller fiber cable we call a drop. And in this picture, the drop is buried, and it's a black cable coming up out of the middle of the picture there from the ground to a gray box we call an optical network terminal, or ONT. The ONT is connected to a router inside the house or business that can be connected then to all sorts of devices, either through a wired Ethernet connection or, more commonly these days, a wireless Wi-Fi connection. This is the setup that I have in my own home because of my role, like I told you, within the company. I've had it for 18 years, and I can testify that this is really awesome technology that I think your constituents are going to be very excited to have, and we're very pleased to be able to bring this technology here to White House. Now, I mentioned that some of us met last month with the city manager and with Susan to discuss this, so we're planning to move forward with this bill as soon as possible so we can try to wrap it up by the end of the year. I appreciate this opportunity to talk to you about it, and Stephen and I would be more than happy to respond to any questions or issues that you'd like to discuss. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any questions or comments from council?
Yeah, probably. With the existing company, we get no customer service. We get no competitive pricing. We get sloppy repair work. And the time frame to get it repaired, because I don't care what you do, everything man-made is going to fail. I hope you can help us. We're excited, you know. Yeah. And all we want is the things that I just mentioned: good customer service, people we can call on the 800 line or whatever, and we can understand them. Maybe a walk-in office that we don't sit outside and have to burn up. Competitive pricing, repair work done on a timely basis, and a good time frame. That's all. If you do that, it's kind of like a restaurant. If you have good food and good service, more than likely you'll stay in business. So I pray that you have that, because it ain't the case right now.
Well, thank you for your comments.
Yes, sir.
We appreciate that, and we're glad that you're excited about this. I think
Yes,
you
sir.
realize the potential of this technology.
Yep.
We know that a number of people and businesses make decisions about where to locate based on where they can have access to this type of broadband speed, because, people, they want to work remotely, they want to live in a place where you've got good quality of living, like White House, but and you don't have the traffic congestion and some of the complications that come with living in a big city. But to do that, you really have to have this type of broadband network. And so, in large metropolitan areas where I live, I've had access to this technology for a long time. But in medium-sized markets, that really has not been a reality. And we generally believe that competition is good for the consumer. Our offering will be, we think our offering is superior in technology, but it will have to be priced competitively so that we can, who's going to sign up for it if it's not competitively priced? So I'm not talking about prices because I'm not a sales guy, and that's not why I'm here. We have a marketing department that will work on that once we actually build a network. Now, as we build the network, when we complete a neighborhood, we light the fiber up and people can subscribe to it then. So we're not going to wait until we build out the whole community at the end of the year and then run a Christmas special, okay? Once we light this stuff up, we're going to start trying to sell it. And at that time, we'll be announcing our pricing, and people can hopefully take advantage of that, and there'll be more information to come on that. First, we got to build it, and that's the challenge we understand for that is it places a big strain on city services because we have to have a lot of locates to make sure that our contractors don't hit stuff. We don't want that to happen, and you don't want that to happen. And then we have to have the permitting issues to make sure that we can, that way the city staff knows where we're building, and we can walk that and make sure it's all right, and then it's all put back together again. Frontier is an incumbent local exchange company, ILEC. That doesn't mean anything to most of you probably, but we're the phone company. So we've been doing this a long time. We've been building fiber optic networks for almost 20 years. So we have more experience at doing this. The other thing that's wonderful about fiber, and again, I can testify to this, fiber is better for copper in terms of broadband speeds, but it's also better because fiber's glass. It's inert. It doesn't react to weather. It doesn't react to electricity or anything like that. And so the terminal that's buried at the front of my property, when we get a heavy rain like we thank God did last week, it can fill with water. And so it can sit in the water and it doesn't affect the service. 18 years, I've never had a problem with my service because my network is all glass. That's a big difference from a copper network. I don't care if it's the phone company's network, the old school copper, which we call twisted pair, or if it's cable network, which is coax, is also copper. So once it's all the way fiber to the home, there's a lot less likelihood that there's going to be some service problems that customers are going to have. And we think that makes the experience a lot better for consumers as well.
Yes, sir.
Just make it super short. What percentage of our citizens are you planning on covering with this build out?
You're going to probably, I'll say about 4,000 homes. You tell me what percentage that is. You're more familiar with the population. I know you've got about 8,500 to 9,000 people, right, in the area here. So I'm saying 4,000 homes. So you double that, that's 8,000 people, and normally there are more than two sometimes in a household. So we're going to build out pretty much the entire community. We're building out, and I didn't want to complicate this because I don't want to use terminology that's just telecom jargon. We serve what's called a base rate area. That was set up by the Public Utility Commission a long, long time ago. And so that's where our copper network is. So where our copper network is, we're building our fiber network. So I don't know how that lines up with city limits exactly because the base rate area doesn't always conform to city limits, and city limits change because you annex property or things like that. So the city staff will know exactly where we're building when we do the permitting process, and so they'll be able to have a real clear picture of a percentage.
And we did see some preliminary maps of what areas they would cover, and the only, large pockets that we saw that weren't in their current service plan were properties, large parcels that were not yet developed, and so we identified those, let Frontier know about those, and we'll make sure our developers know about this opportunity as well. So I would say, Susan, I saw it, it was almost everyone.
It's very close.
And the other point that I would make is, we're not cherry picking. They're not gonna be have and have-nots in your community. We're building to everybody. We're not trying to cherry pick certain areas.
Thank you.
You bet.
Got one more question, man. Will you have a walk-in office? You won't have one here, I'm sure. Will you have a walk-in office in Tyler? You know,
You know,
I just wonder.
I don't know. I'll ask about that.
will there be a Christmas present for the residents this year? In other words, will it be ready for December, January?
If we can get the permittings that we need and we don't run into any problems, yes, sir. That is our desire, is to try to complete the build by the end of the year.
Okay, good.
Well, I want to thank you for
Yes.
investing in the city of White House, and it's always a risk. It's always when a company comes in and puts that much investment into infrastructure, it's always a risk. And I think you're taking a gamble on a community that you'll see a lot of benefits from. We've been preparing in one way or another for the last year, maybe year and a half, for the presence of fiber providers one way or another. And I feel like we're in a pretty good position to facilitate what you're trying to do. We've stood up ordinances to make it clear where digging is allowed and to be notified when digging happens. And just knowing that we're not subject matter experts in fiber, laying fiber, identifying where fiber should be, we brought in a third party to help us review those requests in a timely manner. So when you're in a place where you would be willing to pay for those permits in order to move things faster, that structure is in place for you guys. And I'm excited to see that fall in line just ahead of you guys coming into town. So I know I speak for a lot of the citizens whenever I say that we definitely welcome you as a fiber provider. I think the community is going to be surprised the difference between what they experience over traditional high-speed internet and what they experience with something that's symmetrical like that. Because you get 100 megabytes down, but only 20 megabytes up. That's a way big difference whenever it's symmetrical like that.
Most people don't really understand that, but that's why I mentioned it, is to call attention to that fact. I think it's a real differentiator for us, and I think as people learn, if your teenagers want to upload their videos, you need, and at the same time you're wanting to do something with work, well, you're going to have a bandwidth problem if you don't have that type of a network. So we believe that's certainly a selling feature, and we really appreciate your understanding of this. And it's exciting for me to realize that we're able to bring this type of network that I've enjoyed for a long time to thousands of other people here and in other communities throughout Texas.
Okay. Yeah, we really appreciate it. A lot of the problems that we experience, you hear them spoken about, the internet's down, it's usually something inside the home. It's interference with the router. The infrastructure, the things out in the physical world are pretty safe. So I'm looking forward to see the type of response that we get whenever problems happen inside the home from Frontier. From what I've read, you guys have a pretty good customer rating. So looking forward to seeing those outcomes as well.
Thank you very much.
Any more questions for Mr. Russell? All right. Well, thank you
Thanks
for
again.
coming to see us
Look forward
today.
to working with you, Leslie.
And the crowd goes wild.
That's right.
All right, that moves us down to agenda item E, community interests. Mrs. Black, any matters of community interest to report today? Oh yeah, the school's starting, that old
Yeah.
chestnut.
Mayor, that's a hard act to follow. As you all know, the first day of school will be tomorrow, so we asked all of our drivers, pedestrians, and everyone else trying to get anywhere in town tomorrow to do so with a little bit of patience and a whole lot more awareness of what's going on around them. And then just another reminder that we are still asking for voluntary water conservation and only watering on certain days. Hopefully, as we get into the cooler months, things will, water usage will slow down and rain will increase, and we can remove that request. That's all I have.
Can I add one thing?
Yes, sir.
We got the chamber breakfast Thursday morning at 7:30, sponsored by Republic Services, so please come and meet some folks that are gonna be there and network.
And that'll be at the Jasper Ventures Oak
Yeah, Jasper Ventures, correct. Good point.
Oak Crossing.
Oak Crossing. Almost had it. All right. Yeah, it's going to be a good time. Anything else in the subject of community interest? All right, let's move down to public forum. So I did have two people sign up to speak, Zach Wade and Butch Hall. Give you the option if you want to speak at the public forum section now, or you can wait until we get down to your agenda item. All right, just wave it on. We'll keep on moving. All right, that takes us to the consent agenda. There's only one item on the consent agenda, and that's approval of the minutes of the city council meeting held on August the 2nd of 2022. So if there are no corrections to be made to those meeting minutes, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes of the city council meeting on August 2nd, 2022.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. All right, with that, the consent agenda is passed. On to item H, other action items, ordinances, resolutions, and public hearings. The first item on the list is a public hearing on the proposed 2022-2023 budget. The time is now 6:23, and I will close the regular council meeting and open a public hearing on this matter. All right, we are now in the public hearing.
Do you want me to start, or you want to call for?
No, go ahead.
Mayor and council, as you all know, we have been working on the upcoming fiscal year budget since about April or May, and so we're excited tonight to be holding the public hearing and hopefully adoption. We started back in May preparing our operating budgets, program, and project requests. We started with a citizens committee for the capital improvement planning, which we will talk about in a later agenda item, and received our preliminary taxable values. If you'll all recall, in June, we started our budget workshops, refining those requests, and the CIP committee continued their work. And we continued our work into July, and here we are in August. At your August 2nd council meeting, you did propose a tax rate, which was keeping the tax rate the same. However, as we all discussed in that meeting, we anticipate a lower tax rate than we've had in previous years. We just proposed keeping the tax rate the same to allow staff some time to review and correct some calculations that were received from the Smith County Tax Office. And then tonight, we're asking you to hold the public hearings on both the budget and the tax rate and adopt both the budget and the tax rate. And then in October, we will begin implementing both of those things. Just as a reminder, we have 3 mission-driven focus areas for the upcoming year. The first one is safety. Staff is recommending significant increases to public safety, staffing, and compensation. We're doing that through 4 positions, 2 for police department, 2 for the fire department, and then implementing a 10-year step compensation plan for both of those departments. We feel like both of those things will help us both recruit and retain qualified labor in those public safety sectors. And then we are also budgeting for improvements to the 110 North water plant to provide an alternative power source. As you all know, that's our largest producing water plant and is not yet on generator power. Following up on Frontier's presentation, another area out of our mission statement is to be connected with our community. As you all know, we've wrapped up the fiber feasibility study, and Cobb Finley is working on getting an RFI out for future partnership opportunities where we can work with future, potentially other or current fiber providers to ensure that our citizens have a voice in the service levels that they receive. And then we are also planning to do a Parks and Trails plan. That will be our first one, to my knowledge, that the city has done in the upcoming year. We feel like doing so will put us in a better opportunity to receive grants and donations for the development of future recreation amenities. And the last mission-driven focus area is engaged. As I mentioned, we have our CIP committee and we'll be presenting their recommendations tonight. You all have approved preliminary floor plans for the renovation of 109 East Main to serve as a community center for both our citizens and city adjacent organizations. We are also looking at removing the additional credit card processing fees for utility payments and then an update to the city's 2018 strategic plan. We started this process with 3 large financial goals, which included reducing the tax burden over time for our property owners, reducing the general fund reliance on the utility fund through a payment in lieu of taxes or a pilot, and moving towards adding additional funding towards our Economic Development Corporation in the future. And I think we've shown measurable results on at least the first 2, and I think we have some goals to move towards that 3rd one in the next fiscal year. We do that through strategic planning. Just a few of the plans that we've worked on in the past year being our capital improvement plan development, our facilities management plan, our broadband and fiber feasibility study, and then our staffing and compensation plan that all went into developing the budget for this upcoming year. And this is just some bullet points on the tax information that we received. As you all know, the average home value rose from about $183,000 to $219,000. It's about 19% since the last year. That's in combination of rising home values and the significant addition of new homes in our community. We have approximately $26 million in new construction since the last year, and our preliminary taxable values rose about 17.6%. Based on the calculations that we have done in conjunction with the Smith County Tax Office, we have 4 different rates here shown on this slide. The first is the no new revenue rate. This is the rate that would raise the same amount of tax revenue as the prior year, excluding new construction. You can see that's at 0.701196. We have our voter approval rate, which is the tax rate that would generate a 3.5% increase on property tax revenue for the prior year, which is 0.708904. And then we have what is called the de minimis rate, and that would generate an additional $500,000 over the no new revenue rate, and you see that as 0.782624. Tonight, staff is recommending that we reduce the current property tax rate, which is 0.792891, to 0.772891, which would be a 2-cent reduction in the current tax rate. And these are the tax rates that we've had over the last 10 years. Of particular note, if the rate is adopted as proposed at 0.772891, we will experience the lowest debt rate the city has had in at least the last 10 years. Mayor and Council, that's a testament to the work that you have done to ensure that our citizens, that we're issuing debt appropriately, and really planning for our financial future in a way that is fiscally sound. So we're excited about that number. I don't know what happened to my colors on this slide. This is just a slide of other cities and what their tax rates are, and you can see where our proposed tax rate would fall. But getting into the individual funds for the budget, the general fund is our largest fund. So the property tax line item reflects a reduction in the overall property tax rate of 2 cents as recommended, and a large reduction in the portion allocated for debt, as I mentioned earlier. The current line item budget reflects about $200,000 in revenues over expenditures and is a conservative estimate and ensures that as expenses rise, we continue to have a strong fund balance for our operating expenditures going forward. Our revenues show an increase of about 8.2%, while our expenditures reflect only an increase of about 2%. I think that's a testament to our staff and the way that they work diligently to make sure that we keep costs in line even in times of incredible inflation. These are a few of the projects that are included in there. Again, the implementation of a compensation and staffing plan, an update to our strategic plan. One thing that we hadn't mentioned was the creation of a unified development ordinance that would take all of our planning documents and requirements for our builders and developers and put that in one cohesive document that does not contradict itself and hopefully makes things a little bit easier to find. Again, the reduction of the payment in lieu of taxes that we take from the utility fund to the general fund. Some upgrades to facility maintenance that we need to take care of our current facilities. And then again, the creation of a park plan and some community engagement activities for our fire department. Moving on to the utility fund. Again, we are not planning to see any changes to our current water and sewer rates. So again, in the face of rising inflation and costs for all of our chemicals, personnel, equipment, supplies, we are committed to keeping our water and sewer rates where they stand today. So there's no change in revenue for water and sewer. As you all know, water and sewer sales are a commodity and based largely on weather, so we try to keep those estimates conservative and have kept this flat from the prior year. The revenues over expenditures, the current line item budget reflects approximately $32,000 in revenues over expenditures, again with no change in revenue. The projects that will be implemented out of the utility fund include the compensation plan, the generator at the 110 North plant, and the reduction of the pilot that we mentioned that also affects the general fund. As you all know, we received just over $2 million in American Rescue Plan Act funding. We expect that we will get the second half of that payment sometime during the month of August, and we will commit those funds to going towards fiber projects if those are needed, parks and recreation projects that are identified through that parks planning process, and for a future fire station. There are some smaller funds included in your line item budget detail, which include stormwater, the Economic Development Corporation, debt, and vehicle replacement. There are no significant changes to any of those for the upcoming fiscal year. And so tonight is kind of I guess the next to the last step in our budget and tax rate marathon process, in that hopefully tonight you will adopt both the tax rate and the budget, and we will begin implementation starting October 1. Staff is happy to answer any questions you may have.
So before council, I'd like to offer the opportunity for anybody here tonight that would like to speak on this item on the agenda to come forward and speak now. If anybody would like to come up. Gonna leave a lot of time just in case. Lots of people losing eye contact when I look at them. All right. So that being said, if there's anything from the council, please take this time to ask any questions or provide any comments. All right. So to sum up, we're adding new staff. We're increasing salaries of staff that's in place in order to stay competitive, not to pay more than what's, like the market rate. Doing some long-needed facilities projects, and we're putting ourselves in a position where we can save for the future by moving money from, having utilities be a revenue stream, which it's a commodity, it's not always reliable, to leaning more on the tax base and what's kind of in place and predictable. And we're still able to lower the tax rate. That's an impressive accomplishment by the city staff and the direction of the council, and I'm super proud to be here in this meeting today where that's happening. And we're taking the first step towards saving for the future and reducing the debt load on our citizens. And we've said for a long time that we just need to grow into our costs. If we could just grow into our costs, then, we would be where we need to be financially. And it's great to see that happening and start down this journey. So thank you for that, all of you. All right, last chance. If there's any comment from council?
I'd just like to say thank you to Leslie and the staff. I mean, the presentations through this whole process have been awesome.
Yep.
Very transparent, very informational, and very easy for us to work with. We appreciate it. I appreciate it.
I did have one item that I wanted to clarify. I seem to recall you said that this would still go out as a tax rate increase notice. And I just want to make sure that we're messaging that to the citizens in a way that it's clear, because
So we have very specific language that we have to use when you adopt a tax rate, and that's in the next item or a couple of items where you will officially adopt a tax rate. But because your tax revenue is increasing, it is considered a tax increase by the way the legislation is written. So anytime you notice as an increase, it's because your revenue is increasing. It's not based on the rate that you're charging your citizens. So because we had so much growth in our assessed valuations and new construction coming on, it does show that we have a tax increase. However, we are decreasing the tax rate by 2 pennies. So what they're paying now is 0.792891 for every $100 of valuation. If you adopt the proposed rate, it would go down to 0.772891 per 100.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's strange language that comes from the state, which is widely funded by sales tax, but when the price of bread goes up and they don't lower their tax rate, they don't have to announce that they are effectively increasing taxes. It's, it is what it is.
Mayor, I'd just like to say, we live in a different world, and I'm thankful that the staff has proposed an increase in the police and fire. Thank God for the police and fire department. When you need them, they're always there, and I will stand every day to support these people every day.
Thank you. All right. If there's nothing else on this matter, then the time is now 6:37, and I will close this public hearing and adjourn the regular council meeting. All right, we're back. Any action on the public hearing? No? All right, so we're moving over to H2, another public hearing. This one on the proposed 2022-23 property tax rate of 0.792891 per $100 of valuation. The time is now 6:38, and we will now enter the public hearing. And just to note, once again, the number that we had to show on this agenda item is not where we actually want to put the tax rate. We have another number in mind, but we were following the letter of the law to make sure that it appeared on the agenda the way it needed to. Mrs. Black, take it away, please.
Right, Mayor and Council, just a reminder, we were recommending a tax rate of 0.772891. Again, we had to put it on here because that's the rate that you all officially proposed based on the late delivery of our tax rate calculations at your prior meeting. And we can go back through. Here's what we're proposing. Approximately 0.364498 of that 0.77 would go towards funding our debt service, and 0.408393 would go towards maintenance and operations. Again, we're very proud that this is our lowest debt rate in the last 10 years, and I think it allows us to gain a little bit of wiggle room on the maintenance and operations side so that we can fund things through maintenance and operations that should be funded through maintenance and operations. In years past, we've had to fund some things through debt that I don't think any of us would recommend doing that way if you had the option. And so this gives, like I said, gives us the opportunity to increase our public safety staffing and to take care of some maintenance items that we're fortunate that we're not gonna have to issue debt for going forward.
All right, once again, I'll open up the floor to anyone here today that would like to speak on this agenda item. Yes, sir?
Just point of inquiry.
If you could come up to the front and give us your name and address. Most of us know you, but some of us don't.
A lot of folks don't know who I am. Bill Culpepper. So the voter approval rate is 0.708904. De minimis rate is 0.782624. So as I understand it, as long as you select a rate that's below de minimis, it doesn't require voter approval.
You could, the citizens could still petition for an election if we exceed the voter approval rate, but it's not an automatic election. If we exceed the de minimis rate, it would be an automatic election.
All right. What's the requirement?
For,
How many signatures do you need?
I don't know, I'd have to check.
Okay. All right.
All right, anyone else? All right, any comments or questions from council? All right. Hearing none, the time is now 6:41, and we will close the public hearing and return to the regular council meeting. Any action item from this item? None? All right. That takes us on to item H3, discussion, consideration, and action on adopting a capital improvement plan for 2022 through 2027. Mrs. Black.
Mayor and Council, as I mentioned during our budget public hearing, and as you all know, we have had a citizens committee of about 8 members working to develop a capital improvement plan that will serve us for the next 5 years. Those committee members are listed here, and I really appreciate their work. We met over several meetings, we toured some city facilities, we went over the various funding sources that are available for capital projects. I threw a lot of information at them, and they were kind and courteous enough to soak it all in, look at the projects that we had proposed, and make some recommendations on those. Included in your packet is a report that I have prepared based on those conversations, meetings, and recommendations from that committee. And out of that, most importantly, and it's gonna be kind of hard to see here, we have developed a 5-year plan that would fund most of the highest rated priority projects. So we're excited to put this before you tonight. I do know that we have a couple of committee members in the audience tonight, so they may be willing to speak. But staff is excited to present this to you and recommend approval based on the work of the committee.
Any questions or comment from council?
I, for one, appreciate the volunteers of this committee. I mean, gosh, thank you so much for coming to bat for your city. It's hard to get volunteers nowadays. We're all busy. My mom's 88 years old. She's busy. Everybody's busy. But thank you so much for coming to bat for our city. Thank you.
Anyone else on council? All right. Well, I will say yes, thank you so much for being a part of this. And I suspect you learned a whole lot about the city, even if you've lived in it for a long time. You guys were able to explore some of the facilities that are generally somewhere that you hope you don't find yourself in. Not just talking about wastewater, but there's there's a few of them. So thank you for taking the time out of your schedules to go through that stuff and really do a deep dive on where we are and where we need to be. These are items of needs for the community that you're helping us identify, and we really appreciate it. And again, this is a 5-year plan, so this is a roadmap. This is a map. The terrain doesn't always match the map, but it gives us a vision, it gives us goals, it really helps us plan. And having community input like this helps us prioritize. Because there's a lot of times where we could do one of 5 things and we're really not sure what the community wants us to do or what they find important, but now we know. That really helps a lot. Anything else from council on this?
Great job.
Yep.
Exciting stuff.
Yep.
All right, if there's nothing more, I'll entertain a motion on this agenda item.
I'll make the motion to approve the 2022-2027 capital improvement plan.
Second.
I have a motion from Zach and a second from Mr. Chambers. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. With that, the motion carries. All right, that takes us to item H4, discussion, consideration, and approval of ordinance 22-0816-01, adopting the budget for fiscal year 2022-2023. Mrs. Black.
Mayor and Council, I don't have much in addition to add to the things that we've already covered, but staff is happy to answer any questions you may have.
So this is the same budget we've been looking at for 8 months. If you have any questions, please ask them now. Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the budget for fiscal year 2022-2023 as presented.
I have a motion,
I'll second.
second from Councilman Lowe. Any further discussion? Do we need a roll call vote on this?
Let's do
Yeah, let's do a roll call vote, please.
Okay. Zach Briscoe,
Yes.
Michael Lowe,
Yes.
Georgia Harris,
it. Yes.
John Chambers.
Yes.
All right, with that, the motion carries. That takes us down to item 5, discussion and approval of ordinance 22-0816-02, adopting the tax rate for fiscal year 2022-23. And this is once again, the one that starts with 0.77. So you have that right in front of you. If there's no further discussion, I'll entertain a motion on this item as well.
I'll move that the property tax rate be increased by the adoption of the tax rate of 0.772891, which is effectively a 13.08% increase in the tax rate.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Let's have a roll call vote on this too, please.
Michael Lowe,
Yes.
John Chambers,
Yes.
Georgia Harris,
Yes.
Zach Briscoe.
Yes.
All right, with that, the tax rate is approved. This takes us down to item H6, discussion and approval of ordinance 22-081603 for the 2022-23 garbage rates. All right,
Mayor and Council, on October 1st, 2020, an agreement with Republic Services began for solid waste collection and would automatically renew for successive 5-year periods. This agreement included the contractor would increase rates 3% for all services effective on each anniversary of the effective date. The attached ordinance includes all rates for city services, but only the rates for solid waste have changed to reflect the contractor and city 3% increase on these services. Staff recommends approval.
all right, anything to add, Mrs. Black?
No, sir.
I didn't see anything about recycling. I'm assuming it's staying, nothing's changing with it.
Stays.
And I need to recuse myself from this vote.
All right,
So I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 22-0816-03, adopting the 2022-23 garbage rates.
I'll second.
motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. And let the record show Councilman Briscoe abstained. All right, that takes us down to item H7, discussion, consideration, and approval of ordinance 22-081604, calling and ordering an election of mayor, council place 2, and council place 4. We have some job openings here on council. Let's hear more about it.
Mayor and council, the ordinance before you tonight is to call and order the election of the mayor and council places 2 and 4, as the mayor just pointed out. The election will take place on November 8th, and staff recommends approval.
All right, any further discussion on this? There's
I
no,
think it's weird to make a motion because one of the places is mine, so I don't know.
I'll make the motion. I'll make the motion to approve ordinance 22-0816-04, calling and ordering the election of mayor, council place 2, and council place 4.
Since it's y'all, I'll second.
Thank you, John.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign, or say no? Hearing none, the motion carries. All right, we're in the race. All right, this takes us to item H8, approval of an interlocal agreement and authority of the city manager to enter an agreement with Smith County for conducting a joint election. This is just part of the election process.
Yes, now that you've called the election, now we need a way to hold the election. The city is contracted with the county for several years to conduct our elections. They provide all of the equipment, the software, the personnel, the ballots, as well as expert knowledge in conducting the elections. Contracting with them also allows our citizens to vote anywhere in the county that is convenient for them. Staff has reviewed the interlocal agreement and recommends approval.
I'll make the motion to approve the interlocal agreement and authorize the city manager to enter into the agreement with Smith County for conducting a joint election.
Second.
I do have a question. Where is this going to be held? Is it to be determined?
I don't think they know yet, do they?
It's attached to the ordinance.
The Methodist Church is a
Okay.
polling
Will be
location
done.
in White House.
Yes.
I got you, okay. All right, have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. With that, the motion carries. All right, that takes us to item H9, a staff update on requirements for inspections. We have two individuals that have signed up to speak on this event. Mr. Hall signed up first. So Mr. Hall, if you'd please approach the podium and state your name and address for the record, please.
Okay, I'm Butch Hall, I'm the developer and builder over at Forestdale down the street. I actually live in Tyler at 1803 Everglades Drive. First thing I want to say, Leslie and Susan and Jody have done an excellent job. You couldn't ask for anybody doing better work than these staffers and city manager. And I do appreciate everything that everybody does. Being the developer and builder, it's not really easy. It's very difficult. First of all, you gotta have the guts to do it. It gets very trying at times, when you're dealing with lots of input. Everybody thinks, oh, you go build a house and make lots of money. It's very difficult, it's very trying. It's definitely, it's more trying when you're building lots of houses like we do. Sometimes I count as many as 60 to 70 people in our development on any one particular day. Today was not that day. I wish we had them, but we didn't. But as we go through this process, there's our mistakes made. There's a learning curve going through as well. And I know that the staff has been working with the problem that we occasionally get into, which are the setbacks, and how to resolve and make sure that we have good setbacks and good easements. I've talked to several other builders. There's some builders that came here today that's not speaking. I talked to my surveyor. He was going to be here. He couldn't make it. About the timing and on doing form surveys. In fact, I had started doing form surveys, not even being required to do it, just so that I can make sure that I'm doing things right. Grant you, I make mistakes, but I'm probably the biggest cheerleader for Lighthouse. I wouldn't be here building all these houses if I didn't believe in this city, and also with this project that we're doing down in Forestdale. But my surveyor, I asked him to do a couple board surveys for me, and it took a good while for him to complete the actual survey itself. If I lose one day, I lose a week. I lose 1 week, I lose a month in building. The way that we schedule things are so tight, and we've got our contractors that are floating around. If you lose one of your contractors, you lose the opportunity, and you have to go back and do it. Then, of course, we've been fortunate this year, y'all may not think so, but we've been fortunate this year of having dry weather. We've been able to complete all of our roads, which is a big thing. I was so fortunate that every week we could pour. So we got that done. But the big thing is that adding more time to our process is not going to help us. I don't think we're solving the problem by going and doing a blanket asking all the forms be surveyed. My surveyor told me he could not keep up with the pace. You know, he said, I'm barely keeping up with what you're doing now, much less adding another survey in that he's having to do. I think if you wanted to stop building, this would be the ideal way to stop people from building in the White House, is to put a blanket board survey in. It puts it a little bit more. I'm not worried about the expense myself, because I'll spend the money to do everything right. I don't want to do something wrong. And that's the reason why I've already started doing myself the surveys. But the problem that we run into is, how are we going to get that inspection done in a timely manner so that we can continue our process? is it gonna be electronic, or are we gonna have to, have a paper copy made and brought in to have it looked at? So it's a timing issue more than it is anything else. So some of the builders I've talked to actually do build in Tyler, lots of building. I talked to 3 different builders, and they explained to me that they have not had to have a form survey, but they do have an inspection on the forms. Where they actually set their forms up, put their strings for their corners, and have it measured. Not doing a formal survey, where a surveyor came out and actually did their survey. I think there's some other things that we can do, and I would hope that what we would do is talk to some more of the builders and have a group meeting. Let us get involved and find the best way to solve the problem instead of having a situation where we're actually being told that this is what we're gonna have to do. I think there's other options in here that we haven't investigated because, we wanted to do something quick. So that's the main reason I came here tonight is I'm not a negative person. I just don't like to be told that I've got to do a survey that's going to delay everything, but I want to find a solution. And I think there are options out there, but we just haven't had a chance to investigate. And I would hope that the city would form a group of builders that are actually doing the work and try to come up with a solution instead of just going ahead and passing an ordinance saying that we're going to have a form survey on every lot out here. Again, thank you all. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. All right, we also have signed up today, Mr. Zach Wade. If you'd please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record.
Yeah, good evening, council members. My name is Zach Wade. With Handcrafted Homes, I am a home builder here in White House. I actually do reside in Tyler, Texas, but as I mentioned, part of that 22 million, I believe I saw in the annual report, I did partake in a percentage of that. And with that being said, just going back to Mr. Hall's comments regarding the requirement for a form board survey does add what can be substantial delays to the building process. Our goal, if we can build a house in 8 months, we're moving along pretty well. When you're talking about multiple projects rolling on at the same time, there can be delays that do happen when you're requiring a formal survey. We do them generally when you're buying a property. You do it when you're selling the property. It's included on both sides. Understandably, we need to make sure that these homes are set properly where they should be in accordance with the ordinances. But back to Mr. Hall's point of Tyler, they have processes in place that I think would be a great starting point, and I would be more than happy to give my time for a formal roundtable with other builders to come up with maybe address other issues that are even greater than the form board surveys. So I came here tonight just to talk about that piece, and I, again, would be happy to participate in any roundtables that you guys would allow to happen to not only address those issues, but future issues also.
Thank you, sir. All right, that is the end of people that we had to sign up to speak for this session. So that opens us up for conversation. Anything you'd like to add, Susan or Mrs. Black, to this?
So if you'd like, Mayor, for the benefit of those that may not know what this item is about in the audience, Susan has a brief overview of kind of the background of this issue.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, as you know, residential construction has increased significantly, and we have experienced several incidents of builders forming their foundations in correct location on the lots, which causes encroachments on the required setbacks and/or easements. This typically isn't caught until it's time for the home to be sold. In an effort to prevent this type of error, we were suggesting to implement a form board survey. The survey would be submitted to the city prior to the plumbing roofing inspection. Requiring this will cause an additional step and cost to the builder, but doing this will hopefully prevent the additional workload on staff and help protect the city's infrastructure, as well as make the closing of the home more efficient and easier for the builder and the buyer.
Okay, so I understand totally both sides of this, and because last month we had a very lengthy council meeting on an issue with an easement, just there being too close. We were concerned about down the road if something happened, our cost, how does that look? I'm gonna let you speak, I'm just thinking out loud. And so I totally get both sides of this, and yes, maybe there's a better solution that we could talk about and discuss, but I just hope you understand that on our side, we were sitting here all stunned that there were people that could not close on their home, and it was in our hands to either say yay or nay, wait another week and hope you've got your financing, or we have to make an exception. And so I completely understand that side of it as well. So now tell me.
You can speak twice, go ahead.
I can? Okay.
We're gonna limit you to a couple minutes on this.
Okay, I'll try to make it real brief. Okay, so, I'm a new builder, a new developer. We have 63 acres, we have one drain easement in 63 acres. My engineering firm is, Bob REESE with the Brandon Court. My, construction is, Brad Baker, Baker Court. My, architect is Chad Woods, very, very noted. And none of those people caught that we had 6 foot setbacks on between the houses, which is 12 feet, and we had a 15 foot easement. So there was no way that we could have our lots on that particular section set at 12 feet, at 6 feet. And when my architect actually drew it up, there was no place that showed that they had that easement. They had that drainage easement. So that's how that happened. It's that one time, that one situation on the only drain that we have in the whole 63 acres. The comments about the cost that it would take for that, if we ever had to go dig, I can bring in a mini excavator through that door. 3 feet, less than 3 feet that can go in, so you don't have to dig. You're not gonna have to dig with shovels. I mean, you're gonna have to dig somewhere if you ever had that situation. Of course, we got reinforced concrete, so I don't think we'll ever have that issue. So, beside that, I mean, that was one that the planning and zoning board didn't catch it. I didn't catch it. My surveyor did, he caught it when we went to closing for lot 48, but lot 49 went through the title company. They didn't catch it. We would have never caught it if I had not requested a survey. I had a cash buyer for that particular lot. He didn't want a survey. I wanted a survey. I spent my money to get a survey. If I had not requested that survey, this issue never would have been fat happy right now, and no one would know the difference 50 years from now. So I just want to bring that up, is that I did not intentionally do anything. It wasn't something that happened, and so many people missed it. It went through so many hands. So thank you. I appreciate you letting me clear that.
Sure,
And
yeah.
I apologize to Leslie for not being here for that, because I threw her under the bus. And I didn't know I was. I'm sorry.
Are we able to ask him a question?
Yeah, go ahead. Well, he's already spoken
It
twice.
doesn't matter, that's okay.
You can ask a question, I'm pretty sure that the people,
I
the
mean-
staff would know.
I mean, again, I'm not a house expert, and it was a bad mistake. Mistakes happen, we're human. But how do people like in Canton or Longview or Henderson, how is this avoided? I don't know.
So some cities require form board surveys, like we're recommending. Other cities will allow the string lines to be run and inspected, but that puts an additional step on your inspector. And at a time where our inspector is already so covered up with inspections, I hate to add an additional step to our inspector to make sure that builders are building where they say they're gonna build. So that adds extra time and an extra cost to our staffing to have that out there. There are many builders that do these already, as a matter of practice to protect their investment as they're going through the building process. And it's not just Mr. Hall that spoke. We've had a concern with another builder. And again, if it's not caught in the survey when it's sold, we don't know until we go out there to do work. And so this is to protect the builder, the buyer, and the city all throughout the process, is why staff is recommending this.
So this is a pretty common process of what we're looking at doing possibly.
I can't speak to how many cities in the area do this, but it's not unheard of.
Guess just thinking it through kind of logically, like, you know, from a builder's perspective, that's one more sub you've got to line up, and it makes your whole schedule dependent on something you have no control over. And so I definitely see it from the builder's perspective, how a formal survey is kind of risky. I guess, you know, since we had somebody volunteer to potentially roundtable this, is there a process we can follow to kick it back to the planning and zoning committee and get a recommendation from them with the builder, and then have it come to us?
We could work on something. I mean, we don't have a process in place right now, but we could try and work something up.
It would be my preference. I can't speak for everyone up here. It would be my preference if we try to show some good faith in this process with the builders and our planning and zoning committee, so.
So we did present this to planning and zoning last night as well, and they were comfortable with moving forward, but we are certainly open to taking it back to them with more input from the builders.
And a recommendation, please, a formal recommendation.
I'll volunteer to roundtable with y'all if y'all are in.
Oh, y'all have no idea what you're getting into.
You have no idea.
For the record, I like the idea of hearing what the builders can come up with too. I mean, we're gonna do something. We know this is the ultimate thing to do. We may end up doing it, but just at least give them a chance to bring us their ideas.
I agree too. Give them a chance.
Sorry.
I feel like it's the most drastic step, and I get it would work, and I know what it's gonna do, but I've built restaurants too, and I know the added steps and pressure could very well make someone just say, I'll just not build here. And I don't want that to happen either, so I'm more than happy to, I'm sure we can meet one time and knock it out.
And I will say this is something that the staff put together at the urging of the council, because as Councilwoman Harris said, we were super uncomfortable. I think one of those houses was being lived in, and the other one was waiting on closing, and the choice was either make this allowance or dig up some foundations and displace somebody and maybe, and that was just a really, really bad spot. So it's coming from a place of concern for our citizens, but we do want to be aware of more than necessary impact on the builders. So I think this is a great opportunity to get all the builders in the same room and come up with some options that could still satisfy what we're looking for as a council.
I guess Jody has to come to this meeting too.
But still follow the spirit of what we're getting to. We just don't want to be in a position where we have that horrible choice of digging up foundations or creating something that will cost the council 20 years from now sitting up here to face a decision thinking, what were they thinking? And we've been there. We've been there when lines caved in on themselves and we had to fix those, or a house was built over a main and we had to figure out if we need to buy that house or not. Those are just bad situations that we want to keep ourselves out of. So it sounds like recommended action from this agenda item would be to entertain a committee that would come together that's comprised of our local builders, and Councilwoman Harris has agreed to step in on that, and to involve our planning and zoning as well.
I'll be glad to help too.
All right. Any more, it'd be a quorum.
Okay.
All right. All right. So any further discussion or action on that? It's clear? All right. That takes us down to item number 10, to consider future agenda items. Oh, we got a blank slate. Look at that. Now that the budget's over, we don't know what to talk
Yeah,
about.
I don't even know what's next, Mayor and Council. We do have some, Jennifer's been working very hard on making some personnel policy updates, so we hope to have that in front of you at our next meeting. But that's the only thing I know of off the top of my head.
Will Chief Robeson be back from the FBI by then?
He will not for your next meeting, but the last meeting in September, he will be back.
Okay. I want to see his new badge. Excellent. So, anything from council? This doesn't mean you get out of a meeting. Things will appear on the agenda. You will have an agenda with stuff on it. So
I have 3 weeks to think of things.
don't feel like if you don't say something today, you're going to be able to skip the meeting. So,
There's always something to do. Plenty of stuff to do.
all right, we'll leave it as it is then. That takes us to item I, administrative reports. We've received some reports from staff. They're part of your agenda packet. Mrs. Black, is there any of these you want to speak to specifically?
Let me get them pulled up here, Mayor.
I got a white screen.
Yeah? That's how Steve Jobs wants it.
Mayor and Council, as you can see, our sales tax revenue continues to trend higher than previous years, and you can see that we are having a dry summer based on our water revenue and consumption. Development continues to be strong. Fire department response times remain low.
Oh, good. That's the number you want, Lo.
It's not easy to train in 102-degree weather with a bunker coat.
No, Council, I'll be honest, I've been pretty easy on the guys. They
Yeah.
gotta be ready in this.
We won't let them spray any water either.
I've been there.
So.
Yeah.
They got
That's a bad
strolled.
thing. Well, they have their time of day when they could. They're
Well, even then,
odd
we,
dress,
we've
even
kind of asked them to hold off on that a little bit,
Yeah.
through
So
these
we-
hot summer months.
We have seen some burglaries in cars, if you want to call it that. People that want to keep guns in their cars but not lock their doors. Just a matter of public service, just an announcement saying, please do not leave anything like that in your vehicle, especially when it's unlocked. It's how a lot of firearms are introduced into the black market, is just people leave them in their car and leave the door open. And people are breaking in and getting them. And you know, the police will do everything they can to patrol the areas and make sure that doesn't happen. But your valuables are not safe in your vehicle if it's parked on the road and it's unlocked, for sure.
Or your driver.
Or your driveway.
Yeah, or even your driveway. I mean, people are going around just checking locks. And if it opens up, no alarm goes off. Nobody knows. If a neighbor doesn't see it, you won't notice it until the next day, if even that. You're driving around and you notice something's been missing out of your car. You don't even know how long it's been gone.
Your full Bahama Bucks card, free stamp.
I don't think they're breaking windows. I mean, it's unlocked doors. It's easy picking.
To
You
my
know.
knowledge, all of the recent burglaries have been unlocked car doors.
Boy, I hope they find them. I pray every day.
Well, that's what we got. So you may see an uptick in some of the numbers reported by the police, and I believe that's why. All right, Meals on Wheels still churning out. Library is a fun destination for our citizens. Appreciate the work those organizations do. And KWB, it's a little hot, so the volunteer hours starting to go down a little bit.
You'll see
They'll
that
be-
start to pick up in the fall when they plan for fall sweep.
They'll be back.
Yeah.
All right. Anything on this? We also have the income statement that was provided as a part of the package. All right. So, can't hear the crickets from here, but they're there. So that takes us down to item J, which is executive session, which we'll not be having, so we'll not be doing K, which is convening from that. That takes us down to item L, adjourn. Is there any old business or business to discuss as part of this meeting? Hearing none, the time is 7:16, and this meeting is adjourned.
That was a,
Enthusiastic.
that
Jump every
reverberated in my ear.
I tell you what, we did pretty good for the time.
Yeah, that was a lot of.